And a very good evening to you and welcome to the news tonight. I'm Ebere. We're going to learn the headlines tonight. Stakeholders urge state assembly members to avoid causing political crisis in the state. ABGA suspends 3 state lawmakers over impeachment saga. Federal government approves purchase of arms for Nigerian prisons guards. And on the foreign scene tonight, 4 UK ministers resign over Brexit draft deal. And now details of the news. Stakeholders in Anambra State have spoken against the ongoing misunderstanding of the legislative arm of government over the attempted impeachment attempt of the Speaker by some members of the Assembly. Correspondent Ejike Abana tells us more.
The chairman, Anambra State Traditional Rulers Council, Igwe Alfred Achebe of Onitsha, called on the lawmakers to embrace peace and refrain from igniting the polity and causing political turmoil. Reacting to the impasse at his palace in Onitsha, Igwe Achebe described the incident as plots to scuttle the peace people of the state had been enjoying. He maintained that impeachment is a drastic action and should be the last resort after all efforts have failed. The royal father offered the platform of the State Traditional Rulers Council to help resolve differences, noting that the governor needs all the support to achieve his mandate and action plans.
These are very difficult times, very challenging times for us in Anambra State and in the whole country. We've just finished our governorship election, and the governor has the mandate and he has a program, and he needs all the support to achieve all those programs in the 4 years that he's got to govern Anambra State before he hands over.
In a similar development, members of the Anambra Association of Town Unions condemned the action, describing it as retrogressive. The national president of the association, Chief Alex Onukwe, commended the cordial relationship which had been existing between the executive and the legislative arms of government. He called on ABGA to act fast to resolve internal misgivings, to pacify aggrieved members, especially with the party primaries. He pledged solidarity for actions of the state government and institutions of governance in the state for peace and progress.
ASAP uses this medium to call on the leadership of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, the ruling party in Anambra State, to act fast with a view to resolving all such internal misgivings within the party, especially as it concerns the outcome of the just concluded primary elections in the state.
Amalgamated Traders Association in the state, who spoke through its chairman, Chief Okudele Ezenwankwo, also pledged total support to the governor and the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, as according to them, due process was not followed in the purported impeachment, while emphasizing that the interests of Anambra citizens remain paramount. Chief Ezenwankwo asked the concerned members to maintain peace and tranquility existing in the state.
We pledge our unalloyed and unwavering support to the leadership of State Assembly. The purported impeachment has failed because due process was not followed.
Ejike Abana, ABS News.
Well, meanwhile, the All Progressives Grand Alliance ABGA says it has suspended 3 members of the State House of Assembly for their involvement in the attempted impeachment saga on the floor of the House. Briefing newsmen at the party's office in Awka, the state chairman of ABGA, Sir Norbert Obi, said the suspension became necessary because the parties in the state is of the position that the attempted impeachment was not necessary. Ekwejide was at the briefing and completes the story.
Suspended members are Honorables Hafod Oseke, Victor Koye, and Ikemu Zezie, who moved the motion to impeach the Speaker. Sir Norbert cautioned that problems during the just concluded party primaries is not enough reason to pull down the party, more so with the inauguration of a reconciliatory committee that is working hard to soothe frayed nerves. He reminded Ndibo that ABGA is not only a party but a movement for the actualization of Igbo agenda in the Nigerian polity. The state chairman urged all aggrieved members to shift their swords while assuring them that their grievances shall be addressed to the satisfaction of all.
It's a wish of the party that all honorable members of ABGA behind this unfortunate plot should retrace their steps in the interest of the party. Be that as it may, the three leaders of the attempted impeachment saga, namely Honorable Ikem Uzozie, Barrister Harvard Oseke, and Honorable Victor Koye, are hereby suspended from the party, pending the time they will appear before the disciplinary committee of the party for further action.
In Oka, Ekwi Ajide, ABS News.
And away from that, many writers around the world have either been imprisoned or killed in a circumstance that appears to be related to their profession. It is in recognition of this that the PEN International Writers in Prison Committee in the year 1982 started what is today known as Day of the Imprisoned Writer to recognize and support writers who resist repression of the basic right to freedom of expression. Correspondent Ekwi Ajide again takes a look at the significance of the day, which has been observed today, and reports.
The International Day of the Imprisoned Writer, in addition to increasing the public's awareness on the persecuted writers, is also used to direct attention to several specific persecuted and imprisoned writers and their individual circumstances, as well as encourage the general public to take action against such suppression of information. For a prolific writer, Professor Charles Okibu, there are two kinds of writers whose intent is to educate, inform, and entertain. While journalists educate and inform the public about government's programs and policies, fiction writers aim at educating and entertaining the public with their stories. Professor Okibu is of the opinion that writing is a vocation and one must be called to be able to perform.
It is not for government to respond favorably each time we make a request. The government has its own interest, and the interest of government can sometimes not be the interest of the public. In such a situation, the public should not give up. They should keep on chasing the information they need until they get it. If they don't get it, there are many ways. They can go to court, they can embarrass government by saying government is hiding this vital information that we need.
On her part, the Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka, Professor Chinyere Okunna, said the control of writers or thinkers renders them useless, as they no longer have the ability or confidence of giving voice to the voiceless. Professor Okunna cautioned writers, especially journalists, to be mindful that their profession is public service oriented.
Voiceless is a writer that gives them voice through his writing, poetry, drama, prose, whatever you are writing. And they do it sometimes not directly, but then security people notice that they are speaking without say it loud and clear. Any kind of control or that kind of voice for the voiceless is totally unacceptable.
For the state's police public relations officer, Mr. Haruna Mohammed, police and journalists in the state have a very cordial relationship and as such have no fears of imprisonment or harassment from any quarters. He cautioned police officers in the state to apply international best practices in the discharge of their duties.
Every deviant act has sanction, and police in Anambra State are guided by their ethics, and all their conduct in accordance with internationally acceptable best practice. And by their training and by the leader they have, I don't think there will be an officer that will harass writers or the journalists in this state.
In Oka, Ekwi Ajide, ABS News.
In response to the clarion call by Governor Willie Obiano to spirited individuals, groups and organizations to identify with flood-affected persons at various holding centers across the state, the members of Salvation Army have given succor to some flood-affected persons in Obaro local government area. The team visited Akili Ozuzu and St. James Anglican Church, Iyowo Dekpe, holding centers with flood items worth millions of naira. Correspondent Gideon Sadebe, who covered the visit, reports.
When ABS arrived at Akilio's holding center, a mammoth crowd were at hand to welcome the team, led by Major Godfrey Anozie, representing the Territorial Commander, Salvation Army Nigeria Territory, Colonel Victor Leslie. Receiving the team, the Achilles Holding Center manager, Elder Anthony Udemba, expressed gratitude and joy at the benevolence of the group, adding that most of the affected persons are widows and less privileged, who do not have places to stay, and advised the beneficiaries to comport themselves and be grateful to the team.
Though we can see that the flood is descending, but not fully. So people are still there. So it's a good gesture. What they did is a very nice one, helping the widows, the widowers, the less privileged, the elderly people, and so on. So it's a welcome.
The team later moved to St. James Holding Center, Iyowo, and also met a huge crowd. Speaking to ABS in an interview, Major God's Power Anozie, who is also the Territorial Emergency Relief Coordinator, said the relief materials were gathered by members of the church to give back to the society, adding that the aim was to cushion the effect of the flood disaster on the people of Ogbaru, while calling on the affected persons to embrace and have faith in God as Salvation Army cares for them.
It's simply the message of hope. Keep faith, keep hope alive. No condition is permanent. It's quite painful and unfortunate that some people could lose valuable materials. Lives were lost, but those who God spared their life, our message to them for the Salvation Army is that God has not forsaken them, God has not abandoned them.
On his part, the PRO Salvation Army Anambra West Division, Elder Joel Onyebuchi, and Captain Collins Izuago stated that Salvation Army is known to be a church and charitable organization whose one of the objectives is to help the needy. Dido, who maintained that their visit was to ameliorate the plight of the flood-affected persons, sympathized with the people and advised them not to see their situation as the end of their lives, even as they charged them to give their lives to Christ.
We live in two hands, flying with two hands, which is one is social aspect of it, which is helping the needy. We normally put it this way: where there is need, there is the Salvation Army. After we preach our gospel for the saving of the soul, another aspect we are reaching people, we are touching people's life, is to do this kind of thing we are doing today.
One of the beneficiaries, Mrs. Charity Aniche, expressed joy at the gift items and prayed for God's blessings and more anointing on them, while pledging to make judicious use of the food items. Emengeno Sadebe, ABS News.
The state sector of the Federal Road Safety Corps has flagged off the 2018 Anambra State Ember Month Awareness Campaign. The Enlightenment Campaign, which took place at the Trackers Central Park, Unizik Junction, Oka, had its theme as Save Driving, Save Life. Chidimai Kanyon was there and brings this report.
The awareness campaign, which is aimed at reducing road traffic crashes by 15% and fatality by 30%, was well attended by different security operatives in and outside the state, members of the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, team from the Nigerian Optometrics Association, representatives of Standard Organization of Nigeria, SON, FEMA, Red Cross Society, and some motorists. Flagging of the campaign, the head of service, Anambra State, Barrister Harry Odo, said that the program is a very important component of the security architecture of the state, particularly at this period of the year, stating that the state government has approved the installation of more traffic lights to aid movements.
The governor realized that the ones we have deployed in the state presently may not be adequate for the pressure on the roads. So he has directed the appropriate ministry to liaise with the sector commander, because they are on the field, they know where these things are needed to choose the correct locations for the extra ones.
Also speaking, the Commissioner for Road Infrastructure, Engineer Massa Efejiofo, revealed that palliative work has begun on some parts of the roads in the state to enhance movement. In their separate speeches, the Zonal Commanding Officer, FRSC Benin Zone, Assistant Corps Marshal Kehinde Adeleye, and the FRSC State Sector Commander, Mr. Sunday Ajayi, noted that the last quarter of every year is usually recorded with high human and vehicular movement, which sometimes result to road crashes, hence the need to drive safe and save lives, urging road users to obey traffic rules and regulations this ember months and beyond.
Specific offences such as light violation, drunk driving, dangerous driving, use of phone while driving, and route violation. The purpose of all this is to ensure sanity safety of the highways.
Create public awareness on dangerous implications of traffic infractions, such as overloading, speed limit violation, dangerous overtaking, lane indiscipline, use of force driving, etc., etc.
There was also lecture by Dr. Chidiebere Anowai, a representative of the Nigerian Optometric Association and Free Medical Eye Care Service. Reckless attitude of some drivers was portrayed in a drama by members of the NYSC. As a flag off of the campaign, road and vehicular inspection by the head of service and other security agencies features as a highlight awareness campaign. In Oka, Chidema Ikanyo reporting for ABS News.
Moving on to our national stories, the Federal Executive Council, FEC, has granted approval for the procurement of arms and ammunition for the armed guards of the Nigerian Prison Service. The meeting, presided over by Vice President Yemi Osibajo, also approved the procurement and installation commissioning of Instrument Landing System (ILS) and distance measuring equipment (DME) to guide pilots and planes to the central line of the runway in Abuja, Kaduna, Benin, Ibadan, and Enugu airports. Briefing journalists after the FEC meeting, the Minister of Interior, General Abdurrahman Dambazu, retired, said the approval for the procurement of arms for prison guards was necessitated by the need to secure the prisons, particularly where inmates require maximum security. Drawing inference from the Niger State's prison attack, where some dangerous prisoners were set free, Dambazu said investigation of that attack showed that one of the major shortcomings within that prison was lack of adequate arms and ammunition. And on business news, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Audu Ogbe, has expressed disappointment over what he described as high interest rate on loan facilities for farmers in the country. Speaking in Abuja, Chief Ogbe noted that the high rates had proven to be unfriendly to agricultural production and a major discouragement to farmers. But he assured that the ongoing reforms in the Bank of Agriculture would soon be completed to allow Nigerian farmers enjoy low interest rate on loans and become shareholders in the bank. The minister described the project as a good innovation which should not be allowed to die. He added that one of the policy trusts of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration was to leverage agriculture to bring life into the rural areas. Ogbe said government had no capacity to manage tractors, but commended stakeholders for their support and expressed the federal government's commitment to give the service providers necessary support to grow and provide quality services for farmers. And moving on to the foreign scene, the United Kingdom's Brexit Secretary, Dominic Raab, and the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Esther McVey, have resigned along with two junior ministers over the draft European Union EU withdrawal agreement. The move comes as a huge blow to British Prime Minister Theresa May. Raab was appointed the Brexit Secretary only in July after David Davis resigned in a protest against the business-friendly deal to leave the EU. The two junior ministers who also resigned today are Suella Braverman and Shailis Vara. EU leaders will meet on November 25th to endorse the divorce deal that has been stalled over lack of consensus. May would set out the terms of the draft withdrawal agreement to the House of Commons, which must approve the deal before the UK leaves the EU on March 29. The Prime Minister secured the backing of a cabinet for the draft agreement on Wednesday after a 5-hour meeting. And on sports news, the Super Eagles players and officials depart Nigeria today for Johannesburg, South Africa. Technical advisor of the team, Gunnar Roy, is thinking of no other thing but the tickets that will enable the 3-time champions return to the big stage of African football after missing 2 editions back-to-back. The senior national team has been in camp in Asaba since Monday and is scheduled to depart Benin City Airport by chartered flight to South Africa this evening. If Roy succeeds, it will be the second time he's achieving the feat of tickets to a major tournament with a match to spare. He did it in Nigeria's qualification for the World Cup in Russia last summer. The former Germany defender equaled the 20-year-old record when he led the 3-time African champions to earn a slot at the 2018 FIFA World Cup finals after a 1-2-0 defeat of Zambia in Uyo on October 10, 2017, scripted Nigeria's name on the roster for Russia ahead of final match day against Algeria. Frenchman Philippe Trouzin led Nigeria to qualify for the 1998 World Cup following defeat of Kenya Harambee Stars in Lagos with the away match to Guinea at hand. Rose savored accolades from far and near for his accomplishment, and the Franco-German appears to love it. And once more, with the Super Eagles looking good to earn a ticket to the 2019 Africa Cup finals ahead of the final day of the series. Nigeria won the 2013 African Cup of Nations title, but they failed to qualify for the last 2 championships. And that's it on ABS Television News tonight. But remember that you can follow news and programs on ABS from any part of the world by logging onto our website, www.absradiotv.com. Like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/ABS Radio Television. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ABS Radio TV. And just before we go tonight, a quick reminder of our top stories. Stakeholders have urged state assembly members to avoid causing political crises in the state. All Progressives Grand Alliance has suspended 3 state lawmakers over impeachment saga. The federal government has approved purchase of arms for Nigerian prisons guards. And on the foreign scene, we brought to you that 4 UK ministers have resigned over Brexit draft deal. And that's the size of our package tonight. Many thanks for joining the bulletin. I'm Ebere Ugonna.